Welcome to Evolved Radio, where we explore the evolution of business and technology. My guest today is Jessie Adcock. Jessie is the Chief Digital Officer for the City of Vancouver. Jessie and I explore how government is evolving through the application of technology. Jessie has always had a passion for politics. As the executive responsible for the digital transformation and digital strategy of the City of Vancouver, the combination of technology and governance is a natural fit for her. We talk about the responsibilities of the Chief Digital Officer, Vancouver's vision for the digital economy, and the future of the local tech economy. We also chat about the city's Open Data Initiative. Hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Welcome to Evolved Radio. Today we have Jessie Adcock with the City of Vancouver, who is the Chief Digital Officer for the City of Vancouver. Welcome, Jessie.
Hi, Todd. Thanks very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So first off, I'd like to chat about your history and your role and a bit of your background. You could tell us what led you to the current spot in your career.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in IT for about 20 years, just shy maybe by a year or two. And I graduated from university at SFU during .com and fell into working for tech companies at the time. And I worked for about 10 years in the telecom space. And then I moved into banking. But the common thread through all of that was sort of the internet. So while I was in telecom, we were working on e-commerce. And then as I moved into banking, I started working in basically shifting business models online. So the traditional bank became an online bank. And so, a couple of decades of experience interacting with users online, developing strategies to increase adoption of digital technologies. And I had the opportunity to work globally. So I've worked for lots of telecoms and that. And then this opportunity came up with the City of Vancouver 2.5 years ago, where they were looking for somebody to help them modernize. And it seemed like a really good fit for me in the sense that it allowed me to draw upon all the experiences that I'd had from that sort of 2 decades in IT and apply them within a government context. And I was really interested by it because I had actually done my undergraduate degree in political science. So I was actually very interested in government and very, engaged politically. And so it felt like a really neat way to merge what was, a sort of community passion with the skill set that I had achieved through the course of my career. So the opportunity came up and they did a global recruitment for the role, and I was lucky enough to sort of be one of the local people who, made the cut and went through the various hiring kind of steps, and yeah, I was the successful one in the end. So
excellent.
Yeah.
So just a bit of background, if could, on Chief Digital Officer. I think it's not necessarily a term that a lot of people would be familiar with. Obviously, people are familiar with the CFO and the CEO, but the CDO, as the Chief Digital Officer, is something that I guess is a part of that evolution of business and data and the merging of business and information. Can you give us a bit of a sense on what the Chief Digital Officer's role would be?
Yeah, I think that there's a spectrum of chief digital officers. I think that's probably the first thing that we should acknowledge. And depending on the nature of the organization, you might have a chief digital officer that's more marketing oriented. So their function is more related to brand and digital marketing. And then the other side of that spectrum is more related to the technology planning that is enterprise-wide across various lines of business, and the strategy that's related to the adoption and use of technology and data, both for current needs, but also projecting out into the future. And where the City of Vancouver sits is more on that sort of technology side of the spectrum, so more of a technologist. And I think the decision for an organization to establish a chief digital officer is usually driven by a couple of things. One is that it's strategically very important to have that sort of horizontal function across your business that champions the customer and that champions the use of technology and data. But the other side of it is that it's a signal in terms of the organization's commitment to that. And so you could set up a strategic program and then put a program manager in place to to implement it, or you can send a strong signal that, as an organization, we really want to shift our culture and we really want to shift our direction. And what better way to do it than to implement it or to put in place an executive in charge of that mandate.
Mm-hmm. So what are the groups within the City of Vancouver that you primarily work with? And is it a transformation of the groups internally, or is it sort of a net new growth within the groups that you work with?
It's a combination of a few things. So the City of Vancouver has 13 lines of business, basically, if we want to call it that. They're each entities in and of themselves. So, for example, we've got parks, we've got engineering, we have planning and development services. We have the parks folks are operating pools, and the engineering folks are maintaining streets. Those two things have nothing in common, really, if you look at the actual core product or service. However, the citizens that they serve are the same. And so one of the functions that I had was to try and pull together that citizen-centric view across these various lines of business. So that's one sort of cohesive function that I have. The other function, though, is that I'm also the business unit owner for our what I call direct channel operations. So anywhere where we service the public through a technology, so whether that's our 311 call center, our Vancouver.ca website, or all of our various suite of apps, I'm also the operational business owner for that. So there's a strategic element applied to wanting to service our customers more via digital technologies and less through sort of traditional means. Mm-hmm. So it's a combination of both of those. And then the other bit is working with our technology group to set, technology strategy.
Okay, very cool. And obviously, the establishment of your role indicated that the City of Vancouver was forward thinking about the role of technology in a municipality and in governance. That had to be a strength. And do you see that strength continuing? And what's been the evolution as you've experienced through the City of Vancouver in the development of that role?
I think so we had a 4-year digital strategy that was written and approved by council in 2013, and that 4-year strategy had sort of 4 pillars. The first pillar was around engagement and access, and that's just delivering services to customers or citizens online using digital technology, using technology to enhance citizen engagement. The second pillar was around infrastructure and assets, so broadband and Wi-Fi connectivity, our data, for example, as an asset. The third pillar was around the digital economy and trying to do what we could as a city to support the growth of the tech sector within the city. And then the fourth pillar was around, organizational maturity and culture. The reason I bring up the 4 pillars is that if we look at the role of the CDO and where we started in 2013 to where we are at now in 2016, which is technically the last year of the strategy, we've moved the dial significantly. So we've gone, for example, from having no, necessarily customized service delivery on a mobile device to recognizing that half our traffic comes via smartphone and delivering like a responsive website, and ensuring that, if we deploy new services online, that they are mobile optimized right away, and that we're considering the fact that 50% of the people that are using those are on the go. We've gone from having no Wi-Fi within the city to rolling out Wi-Fi across the city, and then we've got TELUS, who is now implementing fiber infrastructure throughout the city, as well as other telecom providers, and a structure for anybody to come in and do that. On the digital economy side, we've been working very closely with the Vancouver Economic Commission and helped them move some programs forward. And so I would say that the role itself enabled us to shine a spotlight on the priorities in that digital strategy. And so, I think it's been very successful, because had you given those to somebody who already had an operational mandate, chances are that the strategy would have been executed off the side of someone's desk, as opposed to bringing somebody in new with that specific mandate to move the dial on that. So in that sense, I think that the conditions were ideal for us to transform the city.
Excellent. Very cool. So you mentioned the digital economy. It's certainly something that a lot of people, both inside Vancouver and BC, are familiar with, and probably even outside. Vancouver has sometime earned the coin phrase Silicon Valley North, and I think that is in large part because of the forward-thinking nature of the city in supporting that digital economy and seeing it as a future pillar of economic growth. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, I would definitely say that's true. I think there's a huge appreciation of the role that innovation is going to play in our future, whether that innovation is through the sort of digital creative media that supports animation in the film industry, whether it's software, whether it's new disruptive technologies, like Hootsuite or Slack, or whether it's through clean tech innovation. There's also the notion of arts and culture innovation, actually, that's starting to emerge as well. But the future, is in innovation. And so Vancouver as a city really, really wants to make sure that we've done what we can to facilitate and nurture the growth of that industry. Obviously, it bodes well to be diversified in any economic situation. So for us to do that is I think, strategically, quite astute, right? But on the other hand, I think it also is good to recognize what's organically emerging in the city, and this emergence of organic clusters of different types of innovation economies. We need to recognize those clusters that are emerging and then do what we can to nurture them as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. My familiarity of sort of the digital economy and what I've seen of it is definitely related more to the startup community and the software community. But you touched on a couple that I hadn't considered within that realm, and the clean tech certainly being one that makes sense. But even the VFX groups and the movies and the TV production studios that do a ton of work in Vancouver. That's an interesting space that would also fall into a digital economy. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's very rare now that you see, like, you hear this a lot, every company is a tech company.
Right.
And so the more we provide amenities and services to people that are technologically oriented, the more you're going to see in terms of different types of technology verticals. I think also, you have to think about the potential of the future health technology industry as well. We're going to have a new, the Falls Creek Flats area is going to have the new St. Paul's Hospital, and all around that we're trying to create a green enterprise zone that's also very tech forward. And so there too, I hope to see one day, the collision of health sciences and other innovation companies and clean tech all kind of colliding together in a geographic space. Those collisions will also give rise to other technologies that may not occur. That's a really interesting thing about Vancouver, is that we have the collision and the nexus of like green and digital happening at the same time, which may not be happening in other parts of the world.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. What are some of the programs that the city has in place to stimulate and to support that growth? And it must be interesting, since you mentioned several different groups that necessarily wouldn't overlap in the programs that would support them. So maybe just tell us a bit about some of the programs and the successes that you've seen.
Yeah, so I think probably the best sort of program of the last year or two has been our Green and Digital Demonstration Program that's managed by the Vancouver Economic Commission. It's only been in operation for a year, but already we're seeing the companies that are going through that program attracting investment capital, which is great. So the idea behind the program is that the city, has limited, financial resources that it can apply to investing in companies. But what we do have is we have a number of assets that we own, whether it's street poles or street furniture or buildings, that type of asset infrastructure. And, wouldn't it be great if we could help local companies demonstrate their products and services using our assets, and then at the conclusion of the program be able to write a letter saying, just exactly what our experience was with their product or service. The idea being that would help market-ready products get new markets in other areas, or help gain profile that attracts either investment or attracts new business. And so we've got we're in our third cohort now, and basically what we have is a cross-disciplinary steering committee, and we get the sort of companies, the new startup style companies come in. They talk to us about different ways that they can leverage our buildings or our infrastructure, and provided that there's not a huge operational impact, we work with them to demonstrate the product. And it could be clean tech, or it could be digital in one of the various industries I talked about earlier. And we're seeing great success with that. We held an event at Globe a couple of weeks ago where we did the intake for one of our cohorts in an open session, and we had people from the investment community. We had cities from all around the world attend. We had different kinds of folks from the accelerator and incubation community come in, and it was just amazing, the feedback that we got. So that there's an example of where we're using the resources we have to try and stimulate growth in the digital economy.
In my head, as I'm picturing this, your description, is this a bit like a form of Dragon's Den? People in there pitching and the panel judging on the viability and the interest they may form?
It kind of was, and it kind of is. Yeah, the team comes in, and we've got, I'm at the table. We've got folks from Vancouver Economic Commission, from parks, energy people. We got IT people. We got data people. We have engineers, we have planners, and they all sort of sit around the room. And then, so usually a young company will come in, and they have about 7 minutes, and they tell us about their product. There's a long form that accompanies it, but the 7 minutes is sort of a pitch, very Dragon's Den style.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I guess the relationship between the BC government, there's the recent initiative where they've committed to a significant investment in the tech space as well. What's the relationship between the provincial government and Vancouver for those types of initiatives? Is there a crossplay?
So we're looking for opportunities there. We've been in touch with folks administering the programs related to the BC tech strategy, and we've tried to reach out and be a part of it and support where we can. I would say that relationship is evolving. There isn't yet a forum where we sort of collaborate on any shared programming, but certainly they're aware of our digital strategy, and we're aware of their tech strategy, and now we're trying to build relationships between the two sides to try and leverage the sort of synergies that may exist there. Mm-hmm. We've also, not just on that, we've also tried to, build bridges with their open data community and our open data community, and try to work with them. So if they're hosting a large open data event, we attend, and not only do we help, but we support their initiatives, and vice versa. So I would say that we are entering a new era of increased collaboration with them, where staff on both sides are working, as well as they can together. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So you mentioned the open data initiative, and that's certainly something that I wanted to touch on. The open data idea, I think, is really fascinating because there is a absolute ton of data that is available within these isolated and siloed databases that the municipal government holds, that the provincial government holds, that the federal government holds. And I've seen initiatives from both the City of Vancouver as well as other political parties and platforms that they provide the data as open access for citizens, really to kind of use and massage and determine where it becomes useful. Not even in the sense that here's this list of data and this is the format that we put it in and provide it to people, is that it's flat access to the data, and it's up to smart people and even startups in some cases to determine what of that data is useful, how is it formulated, and what value could be provided from it. So I think it's kind of a really cool space that will probably evolve a lot through the course of the next 5 or 10 years. Can you tell us a bit about the Open Data Initiative and the Open Catalog that the City of Vancouver has and what the intent is there?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're really spot on with your prediction of 5 to 10 years. I think if we looked about 5 to 10 years back, open data was still very hypothetical, and it was sort of more of an academic conversation around government should open up the data. It promotes transparency, it stimulates the economy, it's good overall, right? And I think where you've seen that dialogue move now is that people or municipalities or different orders of government are starting to now publish the data sets. Now, as they publish the data sets, I think what happens is that they see, if we, instead of just publishing the flat files, it would be better if folks could just directly access the data real time via an API. So I think, we see the evolution of where that trajectory needs to go to from a technology perspective. The city is still very much sort of early days. We have about 150 data sets available online. We don't have a team behind it, really. It's just, a couple people, and they work with the different business units to say, I think that's interesting data, we should publish it. In other cases, now we're starting to see culture shift where, people will automatically by default go, oh, we should publish this data. As opposed to before where it was a pull and a push, depending on which side of the equation you were on. People are still reluctant to put data online because they don't know what would be done with it, right? And right. So that uncertainty creates a little bit of discomfort. But what we're trying to do is work through that and publish data by default. And so we're starting to now see that culture change. In the future, I think we'd like to see more data sets available online. We'd like to see the consumption of the data be a little bit easier than it is today. And we'd like to see the interface by which you use the data be a little bit more interesting. Right now it's just like a flat page where you download the data. Wouldn't it be great if you could actually visualize the data or actually manipulate the data online somehow? But of course, that all requires investment, and that's where we get into this conundrum of expectations are far greater than a government budget will allow. Right.
Yeah. No, and I think that's fair. It's there needs to be sort of some visionary people that understand what that data actually is and how it could be reinterpreted to be useful. Yeah. Some of the ones that I've seen that are quite cool and useful to the general public are the crime stat maps. And I know that the City of Vancouver is big with this, and some of the detachments of the RCMP, having that data sort of published and then put in some type of graphical interface for people to use, I think is very cool. Some of the other ones are that I could think of are the fire map and the utility service. So mapping out where fire hydrants are for simple things like insurance, or the utility services, obviously for digging, construction, production, access to certain utilities. Not that you have to submit to a certain group for that information, but it is potentially provided to you even through a third-party service, so that relevant information is coalesced and collapsed into something that's viewable and usable for a third party.
Yeah. We have a couple of examples last summer. So we deployed a city app last year called Van Connect. I'm not sure if you've taken a look at it, but basically, we're trying to create a new channel of engagement, and our digital team that manages the Van Connect interface actually consumed some of the open data sets that the engineering team had put out. So a couple of examples was where are all the bike racks, where are all the drinking fountains, where are all the EV charging stations. So the engineering groups had published those data sets, and the digital team, what they did is because they had the Van Connect app, they were able to use geolocation and then merge it with the open data. So, I'm thirsty, whatever, that's my use case. Open up my phone, and then it'll locate the nearest water fountain to me. So things like that, where we now see consumption of the data enhancing citizen service in a new way, where the city department is consuming it and then using the tools that they have to enhance the service to the citizen.
Yeah, very cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas on sort of the future use for that in the sort of the far out phase? Any ideas of what you would potentially envision in that 5 to 10 year space as something that would be really cool and a cool use case for that data, or how it would progress?
Yeah, I mean, I would really like to see the public get, we're not as politically engaged in Canada, I think, as we could be. I think a lot of us, look at the political process as something that happens, in a detached way. I've always been very interested in what happens and what governments do and what decisions they make. What I'd like to see, maybe is to try and demystify the process a little bit, get people more engaged in watching council sessions online and understanding, how things go on to a council agenda, how the decisions get made. And so understanding that so that there's less of this perception that government does things in a black box, when in fact it's actually out there for anybody to see how the mechanism of government works and how the throughput of decision making works. It's just that the actual experience around it is still opaque. And so if we could use open data to open that up a little bit more, make it more transparent, then I think I would love to see, and this is not 5 to 10 years, this is the utopia of a democratic society, but I would love to see society be able to, see what the machinations of government are in a very easy way.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the ones that I have a particular interest in is something as simple, not simple from a technical perspective, but as simple from idea and implementation is online voting. And it could even be brought down to the simple fact of civic plebiscites or civic votes, so that you're given some type of secure token, and each one gets a single vote. And rather than the cost of setting up infrastructure for people to vote on civic plebiscites or referendums, it can be done online, and that really sort of breaks down the barriers of the cost, and increases the level of participation potentially as well. I
agree. Yeah, I'd like to see that happen too in my lifetime.
Yeah. So that maybe touches on some of the security implications, and I imagine that's something that must get discussed as well, as that data does get placed online. Is that sometimes the reticence for people to place the data online as a security, and the concerns of if we put that out there and we haven't considered X, Y, and Z, and someone uses this for something that it's not intended for?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a big source of the discomfort. The fear of the unknown is always like the biggest unsettling factor in anything. I think cybersecurity, is a big topic of discussion. I've attended 2 roundtables in just the last month on the topic. Post Edward Snowden, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of considerations. We see groups like Anonymous get very involved in current affairs. We're seeing cyber warfare becoming an industry where different types of actors can now purchase potentially. I've heard anecdotally. Like cyber weaponry, in a market, in a commercial market type environment. How do you prepare against that? I don't know the answer. It's a big question. We prepare as much as we can, but it is a daunting future, because it's not the same as being able to physically lock something. If people are bad and want to do bad things, they're going to figure out a way, and the digital world makes you more vulnerable. So I think that the uncertainty and the discomfort is warranted, and we just have to figure out, how to keep everything safe. And then we also need to figure out a way for, just the public to understand, how to protect themselves as well. That's a really important part of it.
Yeah, I've had a couple of conversations, other podcasts with security people, and that's it always starts with education. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah, like I tell people all the time, I'm like, how many times do you read a terms and conditions before you accept? People are doing it left, right, and center. but they don't know what they're giving away when they do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to use it, so whatever it says,
Yeah,
right?
whatever it says, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess changing foot a bit towards the future. What do you see as the future for the digital economy in Vancouver and the greater community? What are some of your target goals for that?
I'd like to see us continue to generate jobs. I'd like to see us continue to generate talent to fill the jobs. Obviously there's factors outside of our control, but at the end of the day, I came out of university and started working for a local tech company, but then once I decided that tech was going to be my career, I had to leave Vancouver to find progressively senior jobs, and then ended up working for international companies, and that was because there wasn't a lot of work in Vancouver for that type of career. Now, I'd like to see us break that pattern. I'd like to see us be able to generate talent here and then provide folks with a career path in technology within the city, or within the region. Right. That's what I'd like to see. So, and I think as long as we keep growing jobs and growing talent, we should be in a good position for the future.
Yeah, I think certainly the expanded vision that includes different industries and focusing not necessarily on the tech, but more on the innovation, I think is a very smart strategy, because it will create more of an ecosystem of business rather than just, the if I don't write code, then, I can't participate in this local tech culture. Right.
That's right.
So something, that focuses around clean tech. Obviously, there'll be manufacturing and management positions available within those organizations, and attracting capital and growth, right?
Product management, project management, portfolio. I mean, there's a whole host of roles that are not just programming.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, Vancouver and BC being well situated on the ocean for export and for participation in the global economy, it's a good recipe.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Appreciate your time and your participation. Obviously, appreciate your work with the City of Vancouver in making the city one of the most attractive places on the planet.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate it. This was great.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks.